Imagine being a destitute, clinically depressed single mother surviving on state welfare, writing a fantasy story in dingy cafes just to escape the crushing reality of your life, only to accidentally create a global empire that redefines modern literature and makes you the first billionaire author in history. Yet, imagine that same unimaginable triumph eventually leading to intense public polarization, where the very fans who grew up loving your magical world now fiercely debate your character and legacy. This is the extraordinary, deeply complex, and profoundly human saga of a woman who literally conjured a universe out of thin air, only to find herself at the center of a very real, inescapable cultural storm. Her journey is not merely a fairy tale of rags to riches, it is a masterclass in resilience, a testament to the power of storytelling, and a stark reflection of the complexities of fame in the modern digital age. The genesis of this unparalleled literary phenomenon began in the summer of 1942 in the modest, unassuming town of Yate in Gloucestershire, England. Born into a middle-class family, her childhood was steeped in the classic British tradition of storytelling and reading. Her father read to her constantly, and she developed an insatiable appetite for literature from a remarkably young age. She wrote her first story at age 6 about a rabbit named Rabbit who got the measles, an early indicator of the vivid imagination that would later captain millions. Her relationship with her mother, Anne, was the emotional anchor of her early life. Anne was a brilliant, scientifically minded woman who fiercely encouraged her daughter's creative pursuits. However, the tragic onset of multiple sclerosis in her mother's early 30s cast a long, dark shadow over the family. This profound hardship instilled in the young girl a deep, lifelong fear of loss and a profound empathy for the marginalized, the sick, and the vulnerable, themes that would later become the emotional backbone of her most famous work. She channeled her intellectual curiosity and her need for understanding into her academic studies, eventually attending the University of Exeter, where she studied French and classics. It was here that she truly blossomed as a writer, spending her evenings in local pubs and her days absorbing the rich tapestry of European mythology, ancient history, and classical literature. After graduating, she moved to London, taking a series of mundane office jobs that left her creatively unfulfilled and deeply frustrated. She spent a brief, highly impactful period working for Amnesty International, where she was exposed to the darkest realities of human rights abuses across the globe. This experience broadened her worldview significantly, giving her writing a darker, more nuanced edge, and a deep understanding of institutional corruption and prejudice that would later permeate the later volumes of her magical universe. The pivotal moment of her life, the spark that would ignite a global phenomenon, occurred in the summer of 1990. She was on a heavily delayed train journey from Manchester to London. Staring out the window at the passing English countryside, the fully formed concept of a scrawny, black-haired, bespectacled boy who did not know he was a wizard simply dropped into her mind. She was utterly consumed by the idea, visualizing the characters, the settings, and the intricate magical rules with startling clarity. By the time the train pulled into King's Cross Station, she had the foundational blueprint for a 7-book series. However, the tragic death of her mother shortly after prevented her from immediately sharing the news of the boy wizard with the person who would have understood it the most, a profound grief that forever colored the emotional core and the thematic exploration of death and loss in her writing. She moved to Portugal to teach English, where she married and had her first child. The marriage quickly deteriorated, and she found herself fleeing back to the United Kingdom, settling in Edinburgh, Scotland. She arrived as a newly divorced, clinically depressed single mother, surviving on state benefits. It was during this period of profound personal darkness that she began to write the first manuscript in local cafes, including the famous Elephant House, while her infant daughter slept in a pram beside her. The contrast between the magical, vibrant world she was creating and the bleak, freezing reality of her daily life was stark. She poured her feelings of isolation, grief, and the struggle against overwhelming darkness directly into the pages of her manuscript, creating the soul-sucking Dementors, as a literal manifestation of her clinical depression. The manuscript for the first book was rejected by numerous major publishing houses, who deemed a children's book about magic to be far too long, too complex, and entirely unmarketable. Finally, a small London publishing house named Bloomsbury accepted it, largely because the chairman's 8-year-old daughter read the first chapter and demanded the rest. The initial print run was a mere 500 copies. The advance was modest, and she was advised by her publisher to get a day job because the chances of making a living from children's books were virtually non-existent. When the first book was finally published in the summer of 1997, the response was initially slow, but quickly ignited into a global wildfire. The word-of-mouth recommendation was unprecedented. Children and adults alike were captivated by the richly detailed world, the relatable characters, and the intricate, mystery-driven plot. As the series progressed, the phenomenon reached a fever pitch. Midnight book releases became global events, with fans dressing up as their favorite characters and camping outside bookstores for days. The subsequent film adaptations turned the franchise into a multi-billion-dollar cinematic juggernaut, cementing the characters in the global cultural consciousness and creating a shared generational experience that transcended borders and languages. The financial success was astronomical. She became the first author to earn $1 billion, a milestone she famously lost because she donated so much of her wealth to charity. She established the Volant Charitable Trust and founded Lumos, an organization dedicated to ending the institutionalization of children worldwide and promoting family-based care. She also funded the Rowling Regenerative Neurology Clinic at the University of Edinburgh, fulfilling a lifelong promise to her late mother and contributing to the fight against the disease that took her. Her philanthropy was quiet, deeply personal, and focused on systemic change, reflecting a woman who understood the value of money but was not corrupted by it. As the original 7-book series concluded, the pressure to continue the story was immense. She expanded the universe through screenplays, theme parks, and supplementary books, building the Wizarding World into a massive, immersive global brand. The theme parks in Orlando, Hollywood, and Tokyo allowed fans to physically step into the Diagon Alley and Hogsmeade, turning her literary creation into a multisensory reality. However, the intense, suffocating scrutiny of her primary pen name led her to seek creative freedom. She adopted the pseudonym Robert Galbraith to write a series of gritty, traditional crime novels featuring the detective Cormoran Strike. The first book was published to critical acclaim, and her true identity was only revealed when a lawyer inadvertently leaked it. This move proved that her literary talent extended far beyond the realm of young adult fantasy, showcasing her versatility, her deep understanding of the noir genre, and her desire to be judged purely on the merit of her writing without the baggage of her fame. In recent years, her public persona has undergone a dramatic and highly polarizing shift. Stepping into the complex, often toxic arena of social media and cultural debates, she began expressing her views on gender identity, sex-based rights, and the transgender movement. Her statements sparked immediate and intense backlash. Many fans, particularly those within the LGBTQ community, felt deeply betrayed, arguing that her views were exclusionary and harmful. Boycotts were organized, and calls to separate the art from the artist became a major cultural flashpoint. She faced severe criticism from colleagues, actors from the film adaptations, and human rights organizations, turning her into a highly controversial figure in the modern cultural landscape. Despite the overwhelming pressure and the intense personal toll of the public vitriol, she refused to retract her statements or apologize. She maintained that her concerns were rooted in the protection of women's sex-based rights and child safety, framing her stance as a defense of biological reality and the importance of sex as a protected characteristic. This unwavering stance transformed her from a universally beloved storyteller into a deeply polarizing cultural icon. For some, she became a champion of free speech and women's rights. For others, she became a symbol of intolerance. The duality of her public image is a stark reflection of the deeply fractured cultural landscape of the 21st century, where the lines between personal belief, public duty, and artistic legacy are constantly being redrawn. The legacy of this extraordinary writer is undeniably monumental and incredibly complex. There is no denying the sheer magnitude of her contribution to global literacy and the publishing industry. She inspired an entire generation of children to read, fostering a love for literature that will last a lifetime. She created a shared cultural touchstone that transcends borders, languages, and generations, proving that a single, fully realized idea can change the world. The world she built continues to generate billions in revenue and remains a beloved sanctuary for millions of fans around the globe who find comfort, friendship, and courage in the pages of her books. Yet, her legacy is now inextricably linked to the fierce cultural battles of the modern era. Her journey from a destitute single mother writing in Edinburgh cafes to a globally recognized, fiercely debated billionaire author is a testament to the unpredictable nature of fame and the enduring power of storytelling. She demonstrated the heavy, often painful burden that comes with immense public influence, showing that creating a universe of magic does not exempt one from the harsh, unforgiving realities of the Muggle world. Her life is a masterclass in resilience, creativity, and the unyielding commitment to one's own convictions, regardless of the cost. The magic she conjured on the page will undoubtedly endure for centuries, even as the woman who created it continues to navigate the very real, and often unforgiving, complexities of her own legacy.